So let's talk about trauma today. A lot of information out there about trauma and references to trauma, but I'd like to offer quite a fresh perspective on what trauma actually is. So, trauma isn't actually caused by the traumatic event, the violence, the abuse. It's caused by how you flow with the emotions that are created during that moment of time or period of time. In other words, your head's response to trauma and your body's response to trauma are very different. Now, because of the way that our body responds by producing emotional signals about everything that we go through, it is constantly in an ever-changing flow of energy, of emotion. The traumatic event or the surge of emotions produced within it does not create harm to your energetic function as a being. It creates, the situation rather, creates an atmosphere, experience whereby you have to suppress the emotions, usually for survival reasons. And these emotions, again, are anger and mostly grief because of the massive unfair treatment. So, following this closely, what you'll see is that in actual fact, it's not the trauma that's the problem, it's the blocking of the emotion. Now, let me explain this in a little bit more detail. How the head responds to this state of emotional blockage is the head tries to solve it like a problem. And so we know, and I'm sure many of you have experienced trauma work where you go and see a therapist and you try and re-experience the situation and you try and reframe it in certain ways to allow the release of emotion. However, the reason this is only partially successful is you've created a pattern of behavior of suppression of emotion generally when you block the original anger and grief during an episode that was extremely uncomfortable to the soul being. So the goal for me is not to try and address the narrative that your head has produced around that, is much rather to learn how to be in flow with your emotions today, which is what Mickel Therapy is really all about. I've explained in other videos that that's how we function, how we return to our optimum health is by being in flow with our emotions. So, looking at this in a different way altogether, you'll see that something happens in the past, and for survival reasons, we have to block the emotions that are associated with it. It is the blockage of emotion that becomes the problem. Our head then tries to solve this problem by creating flashbacks, and it's like the past haunts you, like a post-traumatic stress state where you try to make sense of it, look at it in different ways, but all along, the problem is actually just the blockage of emotion. Now, because anger is anger and grief is grief, the body consciousness does not work in the time frame that our brains work in. Therefore, if you then take steps to deal with situations that arise in your life today that might produce anger, for example, unfair treatment, spoke a lot about that. If you find ways to allow the emotion today to start to flow, it flows all the emotions from the past. So as you become more emotionally empowered and authentic in today's world, an interesting thing starts to happen. And clients that have been or going through Mickel Therapy describe something shifting. It's almost as if by correcting blockage of emotion today, The head no longer needs to focus on a problem which is connected a narrative to, which was back at a potentially horrific incidents in your life. So, what you do with today's emotions could be said to empty the backlog of years gone by. And I think if you start to work with today's emotions, you'll be very surprised as to the effect not only it has on your vitality today, but also the kind of haunting that the head creates, which lots of therapies try to correct. This haunting effect just reduces, and people describe things like, I remember things happen, but it no longer plays on my mind, it no longer wakes me up, it no longer casts horrible images into my head. Something just happens, the head becomes quieter, and you are just in flow with your body's emotions. And I'd be interested for your own experiences if you've been through Mickel therapy, or indeed if you've not, as to your experiences of what has helped you with trauma. Thank you very much. Bye.